Today we're going to be talking about strategic portfolio management. But first, you're probably all wondering, who the heck are these guys, right? So I'm Nicolas Mercier, and this is Frederic Paquet. So no, nobody knows who we are? Oh, that's not surprising. It's okay. Yeah, we're Fred and Nick from Canada. So you know about Canada? Up north? Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a few Canadians here. So, yeah, we're from Canada, but we're from a special part of Canada. We're from Quebec. Oh, sorry. So that's where the accent comes from. So we're French Canadian. So that's a French Canadian accent that you're hearing right now. Actually, we're from Quebec City. So that is beautiful Quebec City. By the way, if you want to go to Europe, but you don't have much money, you can go to Quebec City. We have castles and fortifications and people speaking in a foreign language. It's like going to Europe, but on the cheap side. So we're agile coaches from Quebec. So yeah, we're from the agile side of things. Nobody wants to throw their shoe at us, no? Okay. So yeah, we're agile coaches and we work out of Quebec. We work for a great place called Facilité. So we see the French side with the accent there. So we work for a place called Facilité. And we do agile coaching and stuff like that. And before we begin, if you guys come to a point in the conference where you make that face, you don't understand what we're saying, just either make that face or raise your hand, and we're going to make sure we get understood. We're going to try to repeat ourselves, so don't worry about that. So let's get to it.
Yes. So, is it okay? Yeah. So the field report today will be mainly based around a government agency in the province of Quebec with 12,000 employees and more than 1,000 people working in IT, where transformation has begun. But before getting into the art of the subject, we need to step back a little bit to the creation. So let's talk about the creation of a project. It can be sometimes epic adventure for some mid to large size organization just to trigger all the mechanisms for a project, meaning beginning the opportunities, prioritizing it on your own business unit, reading the business case, how the stage gets processed, a lot of money spent, but still no line of code in production, right? And when you got the money, you need to build your team. So maybe write and sign RFP, request for proposal, sign contracts, bootstrap everyone, and cross your fingers that it will work. So you get velocity and predictability with your teams. And you need to define your iron triangles. So the scope, the budget, and schedule. We all know that projects, the scope will change, but we still need to have a common vision of what we want to do, why we're doing it. So the project is launched, and quite fastly, governments will ask about performance and progress. And I know agile coaches like us are sometimes perceived like that. But the project management office and higher governance are there to bring us back to reality. So we have baseline all your iron triangles, and all the classical measures of PMI folks are around that baseline. So you have the earn value, the schedule value, all the performance index. And agile project bring other kind of KPIs, like velocity, parking graph, and sunset graph. This one is about the progress on your minimum viable product, which is cool. But when you sum up all those variances, it's not giving you the real health of your portfolio. And sometimes the shortcut used bring other problems. One of them is what we call the recursive padding. So when you're evaluated on the respect of your plan, nobody wants to get caught. So the business owners have an idea, who asks to the CTO, who talks to the project managers, who asks to the development teams, and everybody has a contingency. So it brings a situation like a user wants to have a data, meaning a column in a table of a database, and he gets a 250 days estimation. Effort, not calendar, and it's a true story. Because nobody wants to get caught. Another one is what we call watermelon indicators. It's the same thing that with recursive padding. So the development team says the project is a code red, so it's a mess, nothing's working. And the project manager explained why all the indicators are yellow, and the CTO present a dashboard full of greens. And that's why all the KPIs of major project in government of Quebec are greens. And it's cool. You just have to do a change request at the end, rebaseline everything, and the job is well done. So that is true. Okay, let's suppose everything is fine. People are honest, transparent, and they are planning in a realistic point of view. But there's still a problem. We are not alone. All the iron triangles of these little project managers are in competition with each other for some resources. So 4 years ago, we started working with Scrum and Kanban with all the teams. And teams start having success doing it. But for the organization, it wasn't really like that. It was a bit more like this. Support team got lost. Shared services were getting urgent requests at last minutes, and even if they were fully loaded. So we knew that we were ready to get at higher level and find strategy to align people. And a common strategy for auditors when you have execution problem is just to plan better. So everybody on their side plan better, and someone somewhere hit the magic button, and you get the perfect master again with all the project aligned and capacity fully optimized, right? And at this moment, this is really where Nick and I both think that we went from the creation of a project to science fiction at portfolio level. Why? Because it's hard to keep planets aligned at portfolio level if everybody plans on their side. Even if you're good doing it, there's always a butterfly effect destroying the critical path. And you have, furthermore, to try to keep it alive, you need an army of project control officers and project managers to plan all the contributions, to keep planification up to date and justify the variances in baselines. I know that because before, I have to confess, I was on the dark side. So, and with inside, I think I was very, very good doing the wrong thing. Now I think I'm not that bad doing a better thing. And when you sum up all the variances, you get these kind of dashboards. But at the end of the day, when you ask the top managers this hard question, how the portfolio is going, they're feeling a little bit more like this, because they know that every level of managers sneaked into it. And remember the watermelons. So top managers just want the global view to act at their level, but it's hard. And another thing is, the longer the process for starting a project is, the harder it will be to stop it. How long does it take between the idea and the first delivery? If you're waiting for a bus that is passing every 10 minutes and you see one that is full, you'll probably wait for another one. But if the next one is passing 2 hours, you'll fight to get in. It's the same thing with a project. If it takes a year or more for a business unit to launch a project, they want to get the value for the money, and what's happening then? You got a lot of useless features to code, to maintain, to document, while higher value features are waiting. By the way, if you want that one, I think it's $10,000 Amazon. You can buy it. So, we did.
It's funny, but it's kind of depressing also to see that so when we started doing that big transformation, we've been doing it for about 4 years. So it's a big change and a big transformation that they're doing. And we started with working a lot with projects and teams, and we didn't start up at the portfolio level. But when we got there, it was kind of depressing. So this is what we did. We asked ourselves the question, there must be a better way. And that the client also said that. He said, yeah, there must be a better way of managing our portfolio. And much like this guy, he's probably telling himself, there must be a better way for me to protect my eyes from the sun. a better way than this piece of cardboard. And sometimes in life, the solution is not that far away. You don't need to change everything you do in your world. You just need to think differently with what you already have. So this guy, if he was in this room looking at this, are you in this room? Oh, okay. So hey, that's me. Where did you where did you take that? So if he was looking at that picture, he might have another perspective on his problem and probably find an easy solution. Probably sitting on his head right now. So there must be a better way. So our experience with Kanban, I said earlier, we had our coaching staff came from teams, so they're old developers or analysts. So we were involved in team at the team level. So when we started working with Kanban, we went to the teams. So we went at the tactical level, at the operational level, and so we started to build our own training sessions and training groups, and we trained about, at that client, about 800 people. So 800 people at the team level, and we told them what Kanban is and what it isn't, and we trained them, and we went to them with the principles and values that you find in the LKU Kanban condensed guide, and we taught them what are those principles and what are those values, and what you can do with these simple yet complex 6 practices. And at that time, the Kanban maturity model was not out yet, so we had to come up with something. So we built a small maturity model in 3 phases, which is reveal, stabilize, and thrive. So essentially, reveal is just understand your system. See what it is, develop a shared understanding of what it is, and then once you get the information you need to put into action some changes and improvement, you'll be able to stabilize your system and become predictable. And once you get past that, you can thrive, and sky's the limit. So we devised our approach in 3 phases, and we went to the teams, and what happened? This happened. So this is, I don't know the name of this event. It's in Europe every year. They go on the top of a hill, a very steep hill, and they chuck down a piece of cheese, and people start running down trying to catch it. And some people have success, and others not so much. So we trained teams, and people were trying to catch the cheese, the perfect Kanban cheese, and be the best Kanban team ever. And we had some success at that level. And then when we looked at the higher level on the impact that it had, it didn't have much effect at the portfolio level, right? So teams were doing a better job, they were more efficient, but at the portfolio level, didn't have any change, really. And what is at the portfolio level? There's a customer that wants something and gets something at the end. So if we're not having an impact at that level, we're not really having any impact at all. I mean, we have certain impacts inside the organization, so it's fun to work in Kanban, and it's challenging, and we have impact, but in a customer point of view, not that much had changed. So what we did is we read about stuff like, the flight level models of Klaus. So that's that. By the way, that's pretty intimidating to talk about stuff when the guy is sitting right there. So, yeah. So that's not ours. That's his. Okay. So this model is so simple yet so effective. So we were at the first level, at the operational level, and we were making changes there, and we were having success there, but we didn't have any impact on the other levels. And we told ourselves, well, why not try to scale Kanban at the strategic portfolio level? Because scaling is a trend now. We scale everything. So yeah, let's scale Kanban and see if what we learn with teams we could apply at that level too. So that's what we did. And we started with the principle of start with what you do now. So we're going to just look at the system. We visualized that system, and we got we put a light on on what that system was. The portfolio was divided. You can see it in meeting rooms and different Excel files, but you never quite saw it because it was dispersed in the heads of people and in meetings. We wanted to see it together in the same place. So we put a light on it, and this is what we found. There was a lot of stuff in the portfolio. It was jammed, and there were some of the roads that we didn't know existed. That not only we didn't know they were there, they were filled with stuff. So it was quite astounding to see all of this. And we saw dependencies, and we saw the health of the system, and we began to see issues that we can work upon at that level, at the portfolio level. So already that brought us some things. By the way, visualizing stuff like that, especially in a culture where transparency is not something that is valued, it's not built in. We're in the government field, so transparency is not good. So when you put a light on stuff, it hurts like a football to the groin. So, but it's okay. So, but I just want to make sure I get my point across. If you want to use transparency and want to show things, make sure you have the opening to do it, because it can be shut off quickly. So we had the opening. We were talking with the CTO, and he says, "Yeah, I want to go there. I want to work in my portfolio. I don't care if it hurts. We need that." So the opening was there, and we took it. So it hurts, but it's okay, because we got something out of it. We got mainly three things. We got system ownership. We wanted people to own their portfolio. People were used to owning their part of the portfolio, or their part of the system, and they didn't care about other parts. They wanted to make sure that their part was good and was performing and was green and was great. So visualizing it as a whole, we wanted to get system ownership, so that you own the entire system. When you own something, you want to improve it, you want to take care of it, and you want to work on it. Also, we want to have shared understanding, okay? We didn't want to have multiple understanding in multiple parts of the system. We want to have all the same shared understanding, so we can have a conversation and find ways of improving it. And then we want to have relevant feedback. So through this system, to this portfolio, we want people to have relevant feedback to be able to make informed decisions and make right decisions. So we visualized, but how did we do it? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But first, I want to talk about systems thinking. So this approach is based on systems thinking. So systems thinking says, well, you can consider a system for its parts. So if you want to optimize a system, you're going to optimize the parts, and the sum of these optimizations is going to be an optimization on the system, right? No, wrong. You want to look at the whole system and work on the whole picture. So Russell Haykoff said, it's not a system is not the sum of its parts. It is the product of their interaction. So if you want to focus on the whole and focus on the interaction and work on those, and forget about the parts, look at the system as a whole. So this is what we did. You're looking at a couple of $100 million worth of projects in what we call the Great Kanban. It's just a funny name. It's the Great Kanban. So this is a portfolio there. So the pieces of paper you see there are projects. So you can see where they are in the pipeline, and it's all in French. It's like exotic. It's fun. So you see where they are. There's colors and there's stickers, give information on what's going on. Is everything going okay? So, of course, the first day, every project was green. But you put strategic people in that room looking at that board, and they say, man, I spend all my day talking about problems in my projects and situations that I need to address. And then I get in that room and everything's green, something doesn't add up. So it brings forth these conversations at the right place. And this is a 8 feet by 16 feet wide board. So it's a huge board. So when you're standing in front of that, you have everything you need to have the right conversation. It's not going to happen if you don't want it to happen, but everything you need to make the good decisions is there. So that was the point of it. And then we made our policies explicit. So all of these are contain policies of how we do things and how we work in our portfolio. So we made sure we made them explicit. And then we implemented feedback loops at every level, portfolio coordination and team execution. And that created alignment across the portfolio, the organization. It helped synchronization. So when we were working at the portfolio level, we were working in front of the board, and it helped manage constraints. So next, I want to talk about Little's Law. I don't know if you guys know about Little. Of course, you're experts. You know about Little's Law, but I'm going to go along and say as if you didn't know what I was talking about. So this is Little's Law. Little's Law. In our training session, we talked about flow metrics. So the three important flow metrics that we were talking about is cycle time, WIP, and throughput. So cycle time is how much time an item spends inside the system. WIP is the work in progress, so how many items are in the system, and throughput is how many items leave the system for a given frame of time. So Little's Law puts these flow metrics in relation, and only one of them you can act upon. Anybody knows which one? Yeah. WIP, of course, thank you. So yeah, WIP, you can control how much stuff you put in your system. That's easy. Well, that's easier said than done. But you can control WIP. So if you limit WIP, it's going to have a positive effect on the two other metrics. So we limited our WIP. We stopped starting stuff and we started finishing stuff. We went from trying to occupy every square inch of that asphalt with cars, because nothing is moving in that system. We're really using our capacity. Everything is used, but nothing's moving. So what good does it get? So we wanted to have something like this, where you can have things go through a system quickly and rapidly and predictably. So in the board, we started to see things upstream. We added a lot of WIP upstream and a lot of WIP in execution. So it looked like this. So we wanted to bring in strategies for limiting WIP. We weren't able to, at first, give hard limits on different stages, saying you can have only 6 projects at that step. We didn't go there at first. We just wanted to visualize it and have people think about what impacts are going to happen if you have too much stuff in there. So they did it by themselves. So at one point, there was a business case that was done, and there was a project manager who was really eager to start his project from that business case and wanted to start the project, and the strategic team said, no, that business case is going to stay there because there's enough stuff in execution right now. We're not going to start the project right now. So they limited their WIP, and they stopped there because they were in a culture where you push stuff in their system thinking it's going to deliver a lot of stuff at the end. So, so they manage their WIP naturally, I would say. And we also needed, first hint, 4-letter word.
Another hint.
Oh.
That's right.
They said tail. Yeah, no.
We aim for a pull system.
Yeah.
So as Nick says, we had a lot of business cases were accumulating in the upstream, and started having this conversation about WIP. But what is WIP at Portfolio? Is it about project manager, teams, people? So it's kind of hard to have this conversation, and people around just not really understand the lean methodology was thinking that just put more pressure and add more business cases if you want to downstream more stuff. But it's fun because the top manager start having this philosophy to watch the WIP and ask what's going on, and start having this polling conversation, not trying to occupy all the project managers, because a lot of them just want to take a lead on their next project. But what are they doing when they are doing this? They're asking on architect, on shared services, to get design, architecture, or estimation. They're just adding more WIP, but invisible one. So we stop that. And we want the system driven by value creation. So here's an example. Took the IT foundation value stream, which is just an IT thing. And this is the objective they want to work on. So, people have agreed on value criteria together, and we play poker with all the direction team, but not planning poker, value poker. I know the target is to reach the cost of delay, but we need to take a little curve before. So we ask one member, one vote. So we have 25 directors and principal directors sitting together, and at the coordination level, people try to sell their features, and they were playing poker. So wherever the monarchy level they were sitting in. So the idea is to bring a collaborative governance and beginning the cultural paradigm shift. In fact, it has been a key moment for us, and some director told us that at this specific moment we reached the point of no return in the transformation, which is really cool. Whenever everyone works on the silos and the level, people complain about the lack of alignment, and people imagine illusory barriers. And some objectives were in competition with each other's. So having all the direction together brought us vision, alignment, and better ideas, and an engagement over common objectives. Then what?
Flow. That's right. I like the trout. So yeah. So we wanted to create something out of. I think that's for me. That's one of the most important things when you're doing Kanban. You're working at the portfolio level and at the team level, whatever level you're working. If you're working in Kanban, getting flow is something very important. And there was someone in another field of that talked about flow, and I think he said it best. It was Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was a visionary of strategic portfolio management. He was doing the martial arts thing and talking about how when you fight and when you move, you need to be like water. You need to flow. Water doesn't stop. It adapts to whatever it reaches, and it flows around rocks and around obstacles and through cracks. So it finds a way. So Bruce Lee said that's martial art. You need to be like water. You need to move like water. So you need to make your organizations and your portfolio management to be like water, to keep the flow and go around and adapt to whatever comes in its way. So we wanted to enable flow, to be able to have that portfolio and the things that flowing through it to go without delays and without blocking. So we looked for constraints by using, so we're building upon what we place. We have that board and we visualize stuff and we look for constraints. So of course we were looking, there was too much WIP in the system. So we addressed that with changing mentalities and ways of thinking. And there were delays. So sometimes there were delays that were put in, that were appearing on the board, and that put into action decisions at the strategic level. And of course, there was always the occasional execution snafu. So it happens sometimes, and when you look at the portfolio, you see something going wrong and falling over. And snafu is a confused or chaotic state, a mess. So sometimes that happens, and you want to make decisions at the strategic level to support that when that happens. So 3 strategies that we put in place to enable flow. We talked about decentralizing decisions. This was an important one because at the strategic level, people were making tactical or operational decisions. We wanted them to come back to the strategic level and make decisions at the strategic level and keep them strategic. And trust people at the tactical level to take those decisions, to make those decisions. And what I was saying to them is, you hired these people, right? You hired them and you trained them and you think they're good, you hired them. So trust them and make them take these decisions and support them afterwards, okay? Because when you take decisions at the strategic level that should be taken at the tactical level, you can't measure the side effects it's going to cause and the impacts. You know, people on the ground are going to be able to know about these, so let them make these decisions, and I told them trust them and support them because they are going to make mistakes. They're going to not make the right decisions sometimes. It's okay. It's better for them to make a mistake than you to make that decision and you make a mistake because you have a bigger impact than they have. And I'd rather take 5 mistakes at the tactical level than 1 at the strategic level, right? And last but not least, we improved continuously. So we brought in a culture of continuous improvement because high level leverages high impact, okay? So if you make changes at the strategic portfolio level, well, it's going to have a high impact. So we invested in improvement effort. Sometimes it costs a lot of money, a lot of time, but the return on investment is there. So you need to do that. And what we needed to do, Fred talked about the cultural paradigm shifts. We want to change a culture, so we used Kaizens at the portfolio level when there were problems at that level or improvement opportunities at that level. We used Kaizens to think about solutions and come up with plans. We had 2 examples of Kaizen. We did one where we saw a very long cycle times on projects. It was very long to start a project because getting contracts out if you want to hire a supplier or do acquisitions and stuff like that, it took time because to build the contracts, it was complicated. We're in the government field, so it's regulated and there's a lot of things that you need to do to get a contractor to come in. So it was taking about a year. Imagine a year. I want to start a project and to go, I've got to wait a year to get the contracts out, and that's pretty long. So they did a Kaizen. So they took people from the contracts and people that are doing the projects, the IT, the business guys, and they sat them in a room for a couple of days, and they said, here's the problem, think about the problem, and go back to the roots behind this problem, find solutions, and put in place a plan of action. So that's what they did. And they split it in half. So we went from 1 year to 6 months. 6 months is still long, but imagine we're in the government and they split a process in half. That was good. And it's continuous improvement. So that was one iteration of improvement, and they're still going at it, and they're going to keep going at it to shorten it. The other example is, which one was it? Yeah, the plan. It's going on right now. They're thinking about the way they execute the investment plan. So their investment plan covers a lot of things. So they're going to be doing a strategic Kaizen to orient other smaller Kaizens. So it's going to trickle down into other Kaizens that they're going to identify. So they're adopting that mentality of Kaizen and continuous improvement, and that's what we wanted. So what is next?
As Nick says, at this moment, scaling is growing up outside of IT because the CEO of the agency has the same problem about alignment, about visualize and bringing this cultural governance. The idea is to watch the organization as a global point of view. So if we take the strategic objectives with objective scale resolve and leading metrics, determine which process needs changes. So what are the future modes of operation in each value stream impact? And what changes are needed? Determine when we can do this, and collect feedback and all the lagging metrics and context change to realign your strategy. So the game purpose here is to loop the faster you can. Gartner recently said that only 13% of organizations can reach their strategic objectives, probably because they're not looping fast enough. So if we are taking this X matrix, it's a tool to design and follow the path from the strategy to coordination, execution, and adaptation. It helps. And we can make a kind of parallel with the flight level. So you have your strategic Kanban at the top left. So the coordination and execution with all the teams. But there's still some challenge to come. We need to really know our actual value stream to incite the future, which is not always the case. And now we know that if we want to loop fast, we need to flatten a little bit the structure and decentralize decisions. We need to be user-centric, not just business unit-centric, and value-driven, and find just enough initiatives just in time. We still need to enforce our predictability and system-level agreements. We need maturity at coordination and team levels. And WIP is always a challenge for top management. And we need to ensure how we collect feedback and our lagging metrics to realign the strategy. And the last one is probably one of our wet dreams. We want to attack how the government is measuring the success or the failures of initiatives, not just about variances.
Yeah, and you want to avoid the pitfall of I talked about systems thinking and sometimes managing by objective falls in the trap of local optimization and you want to set objective and hope that the sum of the results of these objectives will amount to that bigger or higher up objective. So you don't want to go there. You want to keep thinking in a systems thinking way. Make sure that everything is coordinated inside the same purpose as a whole. So that's hard to do, but it's very, very important. And Fred talked a little about the metrics. So we're still, trying to wrap our heads around how are we going to measure, how are we going to have the right metrics at the portfolio level. You can see in presentation by David Anderson, he talks about liquidity, and so we have those in our heads and we're still trying to find ways of using them at the portfolio level. So liquidity is the tightness, immediacy, breadth, depth, and resiliency. Resiliency is system recovery time is an interesting one because I don't see today how we can do it, but it's very, very interesting. And we added the last one, autonomy, which we call, which is in our context, it's in a context where there was a lot of dependencies between projects and team and services, and we want to address that. And the dependency count and measures puts in perspective that we want to have less dependency. We want to break down stuff and have better interactions between things. So that's what we're working on right now, and we don't have answers at that. So if you guys have answers, you can come up and talk to us after the talk, because we're looking at this right now. So I would just like to say thank you to you guys. Thank you, Kanban in North America, for inviting us, and it's been great. So if you have any questions, we're going to be taking them. And if you want to come see us afterwards, if you want to talk, don't hesitate. So thank you very much.